First at 9 this Friday, the 20th of September 2024. On your marks, all set for the 2024 presidential race to begin. Challenged. Fundamental rights petition filed before the Supreme Court against Sri Lanka's agreement with international sovereign bondholders. Claims the deal is not in the country's best interest. Suspended. Ruling party Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna suspends the party memberships of 3 members of parliament.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Ada Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Drisingh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story this evening. With the presidential polls set to commence in less than 24 hours, Ada Derana is primed to bring to you the latest election updates tomorrow using state-of-the-art technology and graphics. The latest election results of the hotly contested 2024 presidential election will be brought to you through our special election coverage, Sri Lanka Decides, live from Studio 24 here in Colombo.
The 2024 presidential poll is set to commence at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Ada Derana is geared up to keep you posted on the 2024 presidential race through the Sri Lanka Decides special election coverage. Derana will kick off the coverage at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow. The Sri Lanka Decides special election coverage will then be broadcast on TV Derana and Ada Derana 24 from 8 a.m. onwards. With production teams and correspondents stationed in each district, we are prepared to bring to you all the latest updates of the presidential election 2024 throughout the day. Studio 24 in Colombo, the largest news studio in South Asia, is equipped with cutting-edge technology to deliver the latest updates to you with live graphics. Our live presidential election coverage can be viewed on Ada Derana 24, channel number 14, available on both Dialogue and POTV. Moreover, election results will also be publicized through FM Derana, the Adaderana.lk website, as well as through the Ada Derana text alerts. In addition, the latest election results and updates will also be posted on our YouTube, Facebook and X social media accounts.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now. චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙත් මනාපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි deal.
Now less than 12 hours remain until polls open for the crucial 2024 presidential election, in which the people of Sri Lanka will elect the nation's 9th executive president. All is set for 17,140,354 voters to cast their votes at the 13,421 polling centres across the island.
In less than 12 hours, Sri Lankans will head to polling booths to elect the country's 9th executive president. 39 candidates, the most in Sri Lankan electoral history, are contesting for the presidency in this year's election. The number of voters eligible to vote in the election is 17,140,354. The district with the highest number of registered voters is Gampaha with 1,881,129. Colombo and Kurunegala came in second and third with 1,756,351 and 1,417,226 registered voters respectively. The northern province is home to 899,268 registered voters. Polling will commence at 7 a.m. tomorrow at 13,421 polling centres across the island, and they will close at 4 p.m. The transportation of ballot boxes from counting centres to polling centres commenced this morning amid heavy security. Royal College and DS Senanayaka College are the designated counting centres for the Colombo district.
ඡන්ද මධ්‍යස්ථාන 1204ක් තියෙනවා කොළඹ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ සියලුම මධ්‍යස්ථාන සඳහා රාජකීය විද්‍යාලය සහ DS සේනානායක විද්‍යාලයෙන් ඡන්ද පෙට්ටි නිකුත් කිරීමේ කටයුතු අද දිනේ සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
ඡන්ද මධ්‍යස්ථාන 3421ක් සඳහා
Ballot papers, ballot boxes and other supplies and election staff for the 13,421 polling centres were dispatched from the 25 district secretariats this morning. Rehearsals for the polling process will be conducted today at those centres. The assistant returning officers in charge of polling centres within each division of a district will submit reports on the status of the polling centres within their divisions to the district returning officers by this evening.
දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ තේරීම් බාර ලබා දීමට කටයුතු කරන ලබනවා.
Several local and international election observer groups are monitoring this year's presidential election. Election observers from the European Union, the Commonwealth and the Asian Network for Free Elections are among the international election observer groups who will be monitoring the poll.
During the cooling period, so far we have reported 100 cases apart from the social media campaign. Social media campaign we have reported up to now 846 cases which has paid advertisement done by various candidates during this cooling period. So we as PAFREL, we are planning to deploy around 4,000 observers on elections day, 3,000 stationary observers and 180 plus mobile observers across the country to cover the entire polling station. We will be able to cover around 60% out of the total polling stations with our stationary observers as well as the mobile observers. For the counting, we have already trained and prepared to deploy around 200 counting observers. There are about 49 counting premises at this time, so we are going to deploy our observers on those areas. Additionally, we have already deployed our observers for this dispute resolution unit, including the election secretariat as well as the other assistant elections commissioners premises in the district level.
Meanwhile, the Election Commission reminded the public on the etiquette to be followed at polling centres.
උදෑසන 7ට ඡන්ද විමසීම ආරම්භ වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා එකතා කල්වේල ඇතුව ඔබගේ නිල ඡන්ද
The polls will open at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Therefore, I request that you go to your designated polling centre as early as possible, carrying only your official poll card and a valid form of identification, and cast your vote. Avoid carrying parcels and bags into the polling centre. If you did not receive your poll card yet, post offices remain open and you can collect your poll card from your local post office. Alternatively, you can visit the website of the Election Commission where you will find a QR code which upon scanning will allow you to obtain a copy of your official poll card. However, not possessing an official poll card will not prevent you from casting your vote. If you are able to produce a valid form of identification, you will definitely be permitted to cast your vote. Carrying mobile phones into polling centres is completely prohibited. Carrying a mobile phone will cause you to be barred from entering the polling centre. As I have reminded previously, congregating around polling centres is also prohibited. If the polling process at a polling centre is disrupted, we will take action to invalidate the result of such centres. If the results of a significant number of polling centres have to be invalidated in this manner, and doing so impacts the final result of the election, polling will have to be conducted once more at such centres before we can announce the final result.
මධ්‍යස්ථානවල පවත්වලා තමයි අපට සමස්ත ප්‍රතිඵලය නිකුත් කරන්න අවස්ථාව
This
තියෙන්නේ.
program is sponsored by
දැන් රුපියල් 280ට සිග්නල් ග්‍රෑම් 160ක් ලංකාවේ වාසිම මිලකට තියෙන පැක් එකක්.
In other news, the ruling Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna party has suspended the party membership of 3 members of parliament. In a statement, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna noted that the party membership of Anuradhapura district parliamentarian S.M. Chandrasena, Ratnapura district MP Pavitra Vanyarachi and Kalutara district MP Rohita Begunawardana have been suspended. The SLPP highlighted that their party membership was suspended for going against Politburo's decision to support the party's presidential candidate at its meeting held on the 29th of July. The statement further claims that their membership in SLPP's All-Island Working Committee, the Executive Committee and the Politburo have also been suspended. A fundamental rights petition has been submitted before the Supreme Court requesting the court to issue an interim order declaring that the government's decision to restructure the debt associated with Sri Lanka's international sovereign bonds has violated the basic human rights of the country's citizens. The petition has been filed by the former convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Vasantha Mudaliye. The Minister of Finance, the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and others have been named as respondents to the petition. The petitioner claims that the interest rate of the debt related to international sovereign bonds had initially been between 5% and 7%, and that under the debt restructuring program, the government has increased this to 8.2% and then reduced to 7.4%. The petition further alleged that as a result of this, the debt which required to be repaid for the international sovereign bonds has increased to $16.4 billion from $16.4 billion rather to $19.1 billion, and that it has put a huge economic burden on the Sri Lankan people. Indian Minister of External Affairs Dr. S. Jaishankar is of the view that the rise in fuel prices with the escalation of the Russo-Ukrainian war led to the multiplication of problems in Sri Lanka. Responding to a query posed to him at a discussion organized by the Geneva Center for Security Policy, Dr. Jaishankar said that fuel support negotiated to be provided to Sri Lanka in 2022 was reduced by half with the rise in fuel prices.
Spoken about Ukraine at some length, and if you look at Ukraine, the conflict, and this is actually tells you today how interdependent and globalized and tightly woven we have become. When the fighting started, it had an immediate impact on the world food markets, especially on wheat. It had an immediate impact on fuel prices. It actually created a disturbance in the global logistics, in the global economy, in global finance to some degree. Many of the sanctions which EU contemplated had collateral consequences on other societies. So this is not so well realized maybe in this part of the world. Many of the consequences of this conflict were actually felt far, far away. We looked at our own neighborhood in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was struggling through problems, but those problems were like multiplied. We had just negotiated support for a certain amount of fuel for Sri Lanka to import. The moment the conflict happened, literally, I'm not exaggerating, the amount of fuel came down by half because the cost of fuel doubled. So a lot of the crisis in Sri Lanka, the tipping point were actually secondary or tertiary consequences of what was happening in Ukraine.
The National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force says they have observed a dangerous rise in forced criminality linked to cyber scam centers in Myanmar. With that being the case, the task force warned Sri Lankans not to be prey of such traffickers and added that job seekers must reject opportunities requiring travel on visit visas as it violates the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment Act.
The National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force claims that recent investigations reveal an alarming trend of traffickers luring victims with promises of high-paying IT positions in countries like Thailand. The task force highlighted that the unsuspecting individuals are then transported to transit destinations such as Dubai under the guise of job interviews. Subsequently, they are forcibly moved across borders and coerced into working in cyber scam centers in Myanmar, where they face brutal physical abuse, torture and electrocution. The National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force stated that they strongly advise against using illegal migration routes and added that job seekers must reject opportunities requesting travel on visit visas, as this violates the Sri Lankan Bureau of Foreign Employment Act. The task force urges the public to pursue safe, legal migration options through authorized channels, stay vigilant, report any suspicious trafficking activities, and protect vulnerable individuals from exploitation. To report suspicious activities, the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force urges the public to contact them via the hotlines 011-210-2570 and 076-844-7700 or nahtTFSriLanka@gmail.com. This statement by the task force comes against the backdrop where 20 Sri Lankans were rescued from the cyber slave camp in Myanmar early this month. According to reports, around 34 Sri Lankans are still being held in the relevant cybercrime camps in the Mayawati area of Myanmar. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that they are working through the Sri Lankan missions in Yangon and Bangkok to rescue the remaining Sri Lankans with the support of the relevant governments.
And now here's a look at some local news across the island in brief.
Vice-Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Senior Professor Padmanal M. Manage stated that the university will reopen for academic activities next Tuesday, the 24th of September. The Vice-Chancellor claims that all students may return to their hostels next Monday, the 23rd of September. The university was declared closed by the administration on the 12th of September, with its students ordered to vacate the premises owing to a violent confrontation between two groups at the university. Meanwhile, a 45-year-old individual was shot by an unidentified gunman near the Nadimala cricket ground in Dehiwala today at around 6:40 am. According to investigations conducted by the Dehiwala police, two unidentified suspects who arrived on a motorcycle opened fire at the individual before fleeing the scene. The shooting was captured on CCTV footage. The victim was admitted to Kaluvoville Hospital, where he later succumbed to his injuries. Investigations revealed that the deceased was an urban council employee in Dehiwala and a relative of a local narcotics distributor. The police suspect the murder to have been committed due to escalating tensions between two rival underworld gangs. The police also suspects today's shooting to be connected to the fatal Badovita shooting, which took place earlier on the 15th of September. In the meantime, two suspects have been arrested in connection to a shooting that occurred yesterday in the Goviyapana area of the Midigma Police Division. The shooting claimed the life of one person while injuring two others. The arrestees were captured during a raid conducted by STF officers attached to the Pushparama sub-camp. During the raid, the police seized 11 grams and 500 milligrams of heroin and a three-wheeler from the suspect's possession. In other local news, the Sri Lanka Navy conducted a raid in collaboration with the Excise Department, which led to the seizure of 810 kilograms of smuggled tendu leaves in the Alankuda area of Puttalam. The coordinated operation led by SLNS Vijaya of the Northwestern Naval Command had found 26 sacks of tendu leaves which were hidden in a land in the Alankuda area. Authorities suspect that smugglers concealed the stock to evade its confiscation and have since been prevented from retrieving the stock due to the Navy's presence in the area. The seized tendu leaves were handed over to the excise station Puttalam for further legal proceedings.
Star dishwasher Dali Hell Indul Pahasuwen Sede. Star dishwasher magic tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, Hambantota International Port Group and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action discussed potential business opportunities at the Down South International Port in Sri Lanka. According to Deputy General Manager of Commercial and Marketing at the Hambantota International Port Group, Derana, discussions were held with the German delegation on future opportunities for German businesses, including the planned expansions and significant investments in various sectors, including container operations.
Last week, a German delegation led by Director and Head of Division for South Asia and Southeast Asia at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, Tobias Peerlings, visited the Hambantota International Port in order to explore potential business opportunities in Sri Lanka and assess the capabilities of the Hambantota International Port Group. While Peerlings and his delegation were briefed on the port's recent advancements, discussions also focused on the growth in roll-on, roll-off, bulk oil and gas cargoes, as well as the port's expanding container operations, which are primarily aligned with the development of the industrial zone. Deputy General Manager of Commercial and Marketing at the Hambantota International Port Group, Derana, said the visit allowed the German delegation to experience firsthand the ongoing developments at the Hambantota International Port. He noted that discussions were also held on future operations for German businesses, including the planned expansions and significant investments in various sectors, including container operations. Discussions were also held on Hambantota International Port's rapid development as a commercial hub and the expansion of the cruise sector, which opened up doors for many in that line of business and aligned industries to benefit.
Now in other business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange closed in green today due to price gains in counters such as Commercial Bank, Hatton National Bank and the National Development Bank, with turnover crossing 1.3 billion rupees. The all-share index settled up 0.75% at 10,966.51 points. The S&P Sri Lanka 20 ended 1.32% up at 3,102.20 points. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Hatton National Bank and Sampath Bank, making the banking sector the top contributor to market turnover. Mixed interest was observed in Commercial Bank, Nations Trust Bank and Hemas Holdings, while retail interest was noted in Logic LLC Finance, Brown's Investment and Dialogue Asiata. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers. Now in international business news, oil prices eased today but were on track to register gains for a second straight week following a large cut in US interest rates and declining global stockpiles. Brent futures were down 50 cents, settling at $74.38 a barrel. Meanwhile, US West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 48 cents, ending at $71.47. Both benchmarks were up 3.7% and 4% respectively on the week. Prices have been recovering after Brent fell below $69 for the first time in nearly 3 years on the 10th of September. Prices rose more than 1% yesterday following US Central Bank's decision to cut interest rates by half a percentage point on Wednesday. The Fed projected a further half-point rate cut by year-end, a full point next year and half-point trim in 2026. A counter-seasonal oil market deficit of around 400,000 barrels per day will support Brent crude prices in the $70 to $75 a barrel range during the next quarter. Crude prices were also being supported by rising tensions in the Middle East. And now let's take a look at the rupee exchange rates during the day. And now here's a look at a corporate news segment for the evening.
In a bid to empower Sri Lanka's fishing communities, Dialogue Asiata PLC has launched the Sairu mobile app, available in Sinhala, Tamil and English. The app, designed for dayboat fishermen, offers real-time weather updates and other essential services in partnership with the Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the Department of Meteorology. The Sairu mobile app includes features such as today's weather, mark my route, saved locations, department services, awareness programs, a digital compass, SOS alerts and a fuel calculator. CBL Global Foods Limited has partnered with the United States Agency for International Development to enhance the coconut industry through an initiative aimed at boosting productivity and market access for small and medium-scale farmers. The partnership introduces advanced farming techniques to address productivity challenges that have long hindered the industry. CBL Global Foods signed a purchasing agreement with Rajarata Coconut Farmers Company Limited, allowing CBL Global Foods to source coconuts directly from farmers in Rajangana and Radhapura. In other corporate news, Learn for Life Lanka announced its partnership with DebateMate, a globally reputed leader in transformative debating programs. The partnership began with a pilot program aimed at empowering 250 underprivileged students from low-income schools in Sri Lanka. The initiative is designed to develop essential skills such as listening, speaking and thinking in students to help boost their confidence and prepare them for success in the future.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.